All right. Well, welcome everyone. We are so excited that you are here joining us for this session on facing off with Scanxiety, something I feel like I know very well. My name is Ange. I am based in Honolulu, Hawaii. I am a early breast cancer survivor. I was diagnosed last year at the age of 33, still undergoing treatment, but I'm really excited to be here. I connected with the Young Survival Coalition earlier this year and just really love everything that they do for young survivors and survivors in general. You can find out more about YSC at their website, youngsurvival.org. So just a couple of housekeeping things before we get into the good stuff. This workshop is being video recorded, and so they'll be available for 30 days after today. If you are registered, you will have access to the recording, so make sure that you formally register on the YSC website if you have not already. You are welcome to put Q&As in the Q&A function in your bottom toolbar in Zoom. And you can chat with each other on the chat. We really want you to engage with one another, meet each other. So you're welcome to do that. And let me see if there's anything else that I have to say. Oh, there is going to be a survey at the end of the summit that's going to be emailed to you. So make sure that you share your feedback, because if you do, you'll be entered for a drawing to win a $50 gift card. So that's always cool. All right, so let me get to the most important part, which is to introduce Christy. So Christy is a licensed clinical social worker and certified oncology social worker. She has more than 15 years of experience working with people and families impacted by cancer and major illnesses, which I think most of us here today are impacted by. Christy has specialized training in cognitive behavioral therapy, meaning-centered psychotherapy, and eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. She works as an outpatient oncology social worker at her local cancer center and owns a private therapy practice. And as if that's not already enough, she teaches continuing education workshops at local universities, and she is a trained yoga teacher and Reiki practitioner. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Christy.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Ange, for the introduction. For those that I don't know, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I am such a YSC groupie. All the people that work at YSC, they know that about me. I'm one of their biggest supporters. I love working with them, and I've worked with them for many years. And I'm really grateful that I get to be here today with everyone. And hopefully something from this workshop will be beneficial for you. If it's not, well, then there's other stuff happening today, but I hope that it will. I'm a big fan of doing workshops where people are going to walk away with tangible tools. I could talk all day long about what anxiety is and how to manage anxiety, but really, at the end of the day, all of you probably need to know, well, teach me some things that I can do to help manage this Scanxiety, because it is intense. And so that is going to be a part of the workshop today, teaching you some tools and techniques. Some of them might be repetitive, some of them might be new. I don't know. Everyone here is in a different place. But I will teach some easier things and some more challenging things. As Ange said, if you want to put stuff in the Q&A, please feel free to. If you want to chat something, please feel free to. If you want to come on camera, you're welcome to. If you don't, you don't have to. Really, you're here for this workshop to make the most of it, and that whatever that means for you. So, I know Ange read my bio, and it seems like maybe I do know some things, but at the end of the day, I'm a learner just like everyone else. I really like to incorporate holistic practices when I do teach people things. I'm a believer that the body actually has a lot of tools that resides in it, that if you can learn how to access it, you'd be surprised how much your body can actually help you manage anxiety specifically. So we will talk a little bit about that as we go through this. So the first thing that I wanted to just talk a little bit about with you guys is understanding what anxiety even is. It's a really common word. People say it all the time, but not everyone actually fully understands what anxiety truly is in terms of kind of its like scientific explanation. I would imagine everyone in the room knows what it feels like, myself included in that way. I don't know what Scanxiety feels like, but I know what anxiety feels like, and I know that it feels awful. So I think that's probably one thing everyone in the group could agree is that anxiety feels pretty awful. However, anxiety has a real purpose to it. So one thing to know upfront is all humans experience anxiety. The degree in which they experience it or the frequency they experience is probably what varies from person to person, but everybody experiences it. It's normal, it's healthy, it is supposed to happen. With that being said, I know that it can feel really brutal, and so people want to get away from it as quickly as possible, but it is something that us as humans should be experiencing at some points in times. So it's an emotion, and it's emotion about what we think is going to happen or what we anticipate happening in the future. And so fear and anxiety love to hang out together. I call them best friends. Fear and anxiety hang out together. But fear is our biological response to the anxiety that one is experiencing. And we can have fear whether the threat is real or whether it's just in our mind. So it's called a real or a perceived threat, right? So I think everyone could agree a real threat would be walking down the street at 3 o'clock in the morning with no one around and then suddenly hearing a scary noise and feeling really jumpy and scared. That is a real threat. You should feel fear. You should feel anxious. That is your survival mechanism and your survival tactics as a human. Those are kicking in. That is supposed to happen. However, because cancer is a very real threat to one's well-being and one's survival, you're obviously going to have a lot of anxiety around it too. So it's normal that when the threat to your survival is present, you will feel anxious. And that can mean 3 o'clock in the morning walking down a dark street. And that can mean sitting in a doctor's office waiting for your blood work to come back. So it is real. And it's okay that it's real because it's a real part of this experience with cancer. The thing about anxiety and fear is what it does is it helps people to get really activated. What that means is your 5 senses especially become incredibly heightened because your survival mechanisms have kicked on high gear. So you become very hyper aware of your surroundings, who's around, what's around, where are the threats, where are not the threats, where is the safety. And it also mobilizes the body to respond to the threatening situation, right? So it gets your blood pumping, it gets your heart beating, it does all of the things to help you use those survival tactics should you need them. The challenge is when you're sitting in a doctor's office or you're waiting a couple days for your scan or your blood work or some type of recent imaging to come back, all that biological fear stuff can be kicking on, even though nothing's currently happening in that exact moment. So anxiety is tricky in that because you don't have to be in the experience to feel it. You can just imagine it and it will start to happen. So again, anxiety and fear, totally normal to have happen, very healthy to have happen, but obviously feels really terrible when it happens. So there are 4 primary ways, and I say primary, they're not all of the ways, but I say 4. These are the easiest ones, the most common ones. There's 4 ways in which humans respond when there is a threat. Again, whether it is real, as in it's currently happening, or it's perceived as in it might happen in the future. So there's 4 things. You've probably heard of these before. They're called the 4 Fs: fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And if you could do me a favor and put those 4 Fs in the chat so that people can have them, that would be fantastic. Again, it's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. So those are the 4 primary ways that humans respond or react if there is a real or perceived threat that might happen. So fight. That means we literally physically fight back when we feel fear crop up, right? So maybe on the street, you hear that noise, it's 3 o'clock in the morning and someone starts approaching you and you punch them in the face. That would be an example of fighting back. I would imagine most of you cannot punch your doctor in the face when you're waiting in that waiting room or when you're waiting in the exam room. So fight is usually off the table when it comes to a fear response when you're dealing with cancer. You can't really go in there and start swinging at people or start yelling at people. That is frowned upon. So you're already eliminating one of your survival tactics that you feel like you can't do, which is like a biological thing that you feel you have to refrain from, right? So fight is kind of off the table. Flight, however, might not be. Flight is we run away from that threat in order to establish safety. This might mean you don't go to the appointment. This might mean you start rescheduling your appointment over and over again. This might mean you just don't show up for your appointment, right? This is a tactic to avoid the threat that is around the corner, right? Is I'm going to take flight. I'm going to run away. I'm going to get away from this thing. And if I get away from it, then I don't have to feel the fear of facing it. Again, it's not a judgment. It's just this is just what biologically happens for some people. Some people will avoid their appointments or just not show up to their appointments. That is you having a biological response to fear, and the method you're using is the flight response. Then we have freeze. So we hold in place, hoping that the threat will lose interest and just go away. So this is really prevalent with animals, especially. I'm sure you've seen this before, maybe on YouTube or some type of educational video, or maybe if you've been on something like a safari. A lot of animals will play dead, hoping that the animal that is going to attack them or harm them will just leave them alone. So humans also experience this. What that looks like for humans when humans freeze is silence, the stunned look that many people get on their face. If you feel stumped or kind of lost for words, if you feel disconnected from the experience, or maybe you feel really spaced out, like I'm not even here. I don't even feel my body. I don't even know what's going on. Freeze is a really common thing that happens when people get told that they have cancer. I hear it a lot from the people that I work with is they just become stunned and they don't even really have words and they feel kind of stuck and stunned in time. So freeze is a natural response that happens when someone feels a gigantic dose of fear because the threat of cancer is around the corner. And then there's one called fawn. This is about playing nice and people pleasing. So hoping that this pleasing behavior will de-escalate the threat and make it go away. So what I think this one often presents as is, I'm fine. Everything's fine. I'm thinking positively. I can do this on my own, right? I don't know if you're one of those people or you've met people like that, what I always tell people, I say, if you get diagnosed with cancer and you tell me you're fine, that raises a red flag for me because cancer is really stressful and overwhelming. Going for a scan is really stressful and overwhelming. Going to a follow-up appointment can be stressful and overwhelming. So fawns sometimes look like this, oh, it's okay. I'm fine. I'm doing good. I'm thinking positively. It's all going to be okay. You might hear your loved ones even respond in that way because their fear is really activated and their biological response in that moment is they want to fawn because they want to make everything okay so that the threat doesn't feel so threatening. So these are 4 common primary responses. These are also completely involuntary. You might respond one way in one situation, and you might respond a different way in the exact situation 6 months later. You can't really control this per se, but you can control to some degree what you want to do about it once it happens. But we don't really have the great ability as a human being to completely control how these biological responses occur. It's kind of like our heart beating. we don't really have control over that. Our lungs breathing, we don't really have control over that. They're just doing what it's supposed to do. And the same thing with these biological responses. So I'm just going to pause for a second because I see some things in the chat. All right. Let's see. I totally check out when my doctor is talking. Freeze. Yes. Yep. The brain goes bye-bye. Uh-huh. I like that your brain takes a disco party. So yes. So thank you for sharing that in the chat, Andrea. So yes, so freeze is a really common response. I think it's probably the most common one for people, especially when they're in a doctor's office, of just like, I don't know, I've completely gone offline. I have no idea what's happening. I am frozen and I am hoping you, the doctor, that are the threat, because you're giving me the information, will just leave me alone and let me be, because I don't want to be here and I don't know what's going on right now. As a side note, this is great why you have someone go with you, or why you have people that are available to support and get the information for you, because you don't get to control these 4 biological responses. And oftentimes one of them does occur because the threat of cancer is so large that we just naturally go into one of these states. We don't always stay in them, but naturally people usually have them crop up. So what I want to hear from the group is, when you feel anxious, when that scanxiety starts to kick up, when you start thinking about the future, and when you realize, I don't actually have the ability to control the outcome of this, what helps you come back to the present moment? What helps you get grounded and be mindful about what's currently happening? And this might be something that you have to do like over and over and over again, because once you feel the anxiety and then you learn how to manage it, you have to keep coming back and managing it over and over and over again. It's not like a one-time shot, unfortunately. So anyone in the group either want to put it in the chat or unmute themselves, care to share, like how do you respond when those fight, flight, freeze comes up, or how do you respond when this scanxiety starts to crop up?
I can share. I don't know that I have a positive response to it, but I guess some background about I'm a little bit over a year remission. I was diagnosed very early. I was diagnosed actually in my first mammogram ever, and I had no symptoms at all. It was a big surprise. I only got a mammogram because I was the age to get a mammogram, and my gynecologist was like, "Oh, you're 40." She had even done a little breast exam on me, and she literally said, "Your breasts are fine, but you should go get a mammogram just because it's a good habit to get mammograms." And so when they had found the cancer on my first, I was shocked, and it took like several follow-up appointments. And even when I got my call back, I was like, no, it can't be cancer. No one in my family has ever had cancer. My mom, my grandmother, no one has had cancer. Even when I went in to get the biopsy, and at that point they told me they were pretty sure it was cancer, but unless I had like a blunt force trauma injury. And I was like, well, I've been in a car accident before. Maybe it was that. The whole thing was unreal, but I got through everything. I had 2 surgeries. I did a bunch of radiation. And so, I was very fortunate to get on the other side of it. But now I'm on a 6-month protocol where I have to get ultrasounds and mammograms. And I've had 2 so far. I had one 2 weeks ago. I had one in January. But I feel like I just freak out for 2 weeks. And honestly, as it gets closer, it just gets worse and worse. One thing that helped was one of my good friends went with me in January and just kind of like sat with me in the lobby and stuff. And so that was helpful. But I have to admit, each time, one of the things I did, which I don't know is the greatest coping thing, but I did have a prescription for Valium that was left unused. And from radio, I'm very claustrophobic. So just from the MRI and the radiation stuff, I just had some that I just ended up not using. And so I took a pill each time, which I didn't think was the greatest thing, but it did help me. And even 2 weeks ago, with having taken one of the Valiums, even the tech was having a hard time with me in the machine, like getting me in the machine. She's like, "You're so tense. You need to relax." And I was just like, I am as relaxed as I'm gonna get. But even just like getting my body in the position just so that she could get me into the machine was a challenge, you know. So that's just been difficult. That's why when I saw this particular seminar, I really wanted to join, because I was just like, I don't want every 6 months of my life to just be freaking out, you know.
So yes, so thank you so much for sharing that. And yes, medication has a place in all of this. Whether it's Valium, Ativan, Xanax, whatever you want to call it. Some people take CBD, like people do all sorts of things. I think there's tools for all sorts of situations. Do I think that some tools are maybe more unhealthy than others? Sure. Would I recommend that like you drink a bottle of wine before you go for a mammogram follow-up? No. However, I do think that medication that is prescribed legally from your doctor has a purpose. And if you need to use it, then you use it. I also think that if you're haven't quite learned what you need to do to help maintain a sense of calmness, or at least turn down the volume on the panic or fear, then, you know, you're going to use what you got to use until you learn those skills. And sometimes you still might use medication. I work with a woman who, I have taught her every single possible tool that I know, and they work phenomenally well for her. But when she goes to the oncologist, she absolutely needs to take medication before she sees the oncologist, and she does all the other tools. So I'm a big fan of all the tools can be beneficial. You got to figure out what works for you. Okay, so I see some things in the chat. I see talking about deep breaths. Doesn't always happen. It doesn't always help, which, yes, that's why it's good to have a lot of different tools in the toolbox. But breath work is a really common one, and I am going to teach you a little bit about that. Yes, having a diagnosis of an anxiety disorder, that's going to impact how people are going to be able to function with this Scanxiety. Coloring, that is a fantastic tool. Doing something with your hands, knitting, crocheting, coloring, painting, something tactile and tangible with your hands. Our hands and our feet are a way that we discharge anxiety from the body. So if you can do something with your hands to keep your hands busy, it's actually a really great way to manage anxiety. Crafting, great idea. Scanxiety is still real even 25 years out. You're absolutely right about that. Crochet, yep, good. Okay, so the great thing is there are a lot of different tools. I think one of the challenges is people have to try a lot of different tools to try to figure out what are the ones that work and what's the situation, right? You're not going to be able to, go in for an MRI and be like, hey, I need to color while I get this MRI. Can you make that happen? Like, no, it's not going to be possible. But maybe there's something you can do beforehand that's going to help you calm down, or there's a visualization exercise you can do while you're getting the test done, right? So some tools work in some situations and some tools don't work in others, depending on the circumstance that you're actually in. Listening to a podcast, that's a fantastic one. And if you want to share the young adult breast cancer podcast you listen to, please put that in the chat. Maybe some others will want to know about that. Okay, so we're going to get into the teaching mode of this. So I'm going to teach you guys a few different techniques. And again, some of you might already know this. Some of this might be a little bit challenging for some of you. That's okay. Since it's a large group, we'll see where everyone is. So the first one, which is the most basic one, but sometimes can be the most hardest one for people, is learning how to do basic belly breath breathing exercises. Now, obviously, all of us in here are breathing all the time. It's involuntary. Your body's just automatically doing it. It's fantastic. However, doing intentional belly breathing exercises is really important. Notice that I said belly breathing, not chest breathing. The reason that I say that is because the belly, when you take a deep breath and the belly expands, what happens is it touches a nerve, the diaphragm muscle, which sits above the belly button, kind of like where the rib cage meets. We have this muscle, it's called our diaphragm muscle. When we inhale deeply and our belly expands, we're using our diaphragm muscle to make our belly expand. The diaphragm touches a nerve in the body called the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve sends out relaxation responses to the body to tell it to calm down. So when you do a belly breath, the reason why you feel calm is because the diaphragm muscle touches the vagus nerve sends off a signal to calm down. If you do a chest breathing, meaning like your chest is going in and out, that's great, you're breathing, but that's what we call survival breathing. That actually can cause more anxiety for people. So actually doing belly breathing is going to be the most beneficial because it's going to send an activation, a signal to your parasympathetic nervous system to calm down and make you feel relaxed and safe. So what I would like everyone to do is just take your hand and put it like your palm over your belly button. And when you take a deep breath, see if you can move your hand out. And when you exhale, allow your hand to kind of slowly and gently kind of push the belly in. So really like exaggerated movement. So on the inhale, the belly expands and the hand lifts. And then the exhale, the belly falls. And the hand very gently kind of presses the belly towards the back. So I want everyone to do this 3 times and just notice how you feel before you started and notice how you feel after you do it 3 times. All right, did anyone notice anything? You might notice that it's really hard to get your belly to move and that your chest kind of automatically jumps in the process. Sometimes people say they feel kind of tight and it's restrictive. Some people say, oh, wow, I feel really relaxed after that. All right, so Deva says she feels calming. Good. Okay. What I want everyone to do is I want you to take your 2 peace fingers and find your pulse, whether that's on your neck or your wrist or your ankle. And I just want you to take a couple of deep breaths and very slowly exhale and just notice what happens in your pulse when you very slowly exhale. You should notice that your pulse gets a little bit slower. That's a signal that your body is calming down. So if it helps when you take those breaths, do very slow exhales and just feel your pulse while you do it, because it's going to give you some feedback, like biological feedback, that you are in fact calming down. Okay. All right. So we're going to do another type of breathing technique. It's called the 4-7-8 breathing technique. Now, if you want to change the numbers, you can change the numbers. But what the 4-7-8 breathing technique is it is inhaling for 4, holding for 7, and exhaling for 8. That might not be reasonable for you. And if it's not, that's okay. You can inhale for 3. You can hold for 4 and you can exhale for 5. What I want you to be most focused on is you want your exhale to be the longest part of this. So if you can do the actual 4-7-8, cool. If you can't, shorten the numbers. This has been the most scientifically proven type of breathing technique to calm down the parasympathetic nervous system. It's been researched a ton. You can go on YouTube, you can look it up. It is the #1 type of belly breathing technique to do in order to calm down the nervous system. You can do it anywhere, anytime. It's completely free. No one even needs to know that you're doing it. It's totally accessible. You can do it lying down, standing up, running, whatever you want to do. But you want to make sure that the exhale is the longest part of it. Okay, so we're going to practice, or you're going to practice. I'm going to tell you how to practice. So just take a few regular breaths, right? So inhale and exhale, just kind of like feel yourself, feel your body. Thank you, Ange, for the time. Heads up. Okay. So on your next exhale, breathe it all out. And then as you inhale, count 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then breathe normally. And just feel if there's any shift that has happened. You might feel a little lightheaded. If you do, breathe normally. You're going to breathe from your belly. Always, always belly breathing. Anytime you're trying to breathe to relax, you want to use the belly. If you are breathing to run away from a rabid animal, your chest breathing is what's going to kick in, because that's your survival technique. So your chest is always going to be kind of the default the body uses. You have to purposely start to learn how to use the belly. It's usually not a natural thing that humans do. Okay, we're going to do another round. So just breathe normally. And then exhale your air out. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then just breathe normally. We're going to do it one more time. So just exhale all your air out. And then on your inhale, remember belly breathing. Get your belly doing the inhale and the exhale. So inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then breathe normally. Anyone want to share anything about 4, 7, 8? Did you notice any changes? Anything physically? Anything biologically feel different? Do you notice that you have a hard time doing belly breathing? Any observations? Well, hopefully I haven't put you all to sleep with the 4, 7, 8 breathing. So the reason that the deep belly breathing and the 4, 7, 8 is so effective is when you do that deep belly breath and that diaphragm muscle has to work to expand your belly, it touches the vagus nerve. Vagus nerve sends a signal to calm down and relax through the most of the body. Okay. So that's why breathing techniques, you go to the dentist and they say, take a deep breath, right? Or before you get your blood drawn, take a deep breath. There's a reason why. It's not just to say it. It's actually because your body will be able to induce a relaxation response if you do it from the belly. You got to do it from the belly. If you want to get better at belly breathing, what I would recommend is laying down, on the couch, on the bed, on the floor, wherever you feel comfortable laying. put a book on top of your belly. It does not need to be heavy, like a standard size book. And just practice moving the book up and down, up and down. What that will do is it will train your brain to activate the diaphragm muscle, because you've got to use that muscle to get the belly to move in and out, right? It's like you don't get strong by going to the gym once a week. That's probably not going to be super effective. You have to go regularly to get those biceps built up. Same thing with a diaphragm. You've got to practice using it. So laying somewhere flat and putting a book on your belly is a great way to give a little bit of pushback so that the diaphragm muscle can work. Andrea, yes, I highly recommend it for children having meltdowns, just as much as I recommend it for adults. Yes. So 4-7-8 breathing and belly breathing techniques are great things to use before the scans happen, before the doctor's appointments happen. When you start to notice that the anxiety is starting to kick up a little bit, start using these types of tools. The next one we're going to do is called a grounding technique. A grounding technique does a couple different things. One, brings you to the current moment. Anxiety is based in the future. It is not always based in the present. So if you know you have a doctor's appointment 2 weeks from now, that is you having anxiety about the future, right? But what's happening right now is you're not at the doctor's appointment. You are on a virtual Zoom conference right now, right? So when you do this technique called grounding, it helps you to focus on being present, helps you to focus on where you have control, helps you to be with your body, helps you to be in the here and now. So a grounding technique, the really, really common one, and you can Google this, it's called the 5-4-3-2-1. It's a grounding technique. And essentially what it does, it helps you to get present. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this. So take a deep breath, enjoy, get comfortable. If you'd like to close your eyes, you're welcome to. If you don't want to close your eyes, you don't have to. But we're going to activate the 5 senses right now. So the first one I want you to use is your sight. So if you are a seeing person, I want you to look around wherever you are right now, and in your own mind, silently name 5 things that you can see right now. Maybe it's really specific and detailed. Maybe it's a little bit more general. 5 things you can see. And then 4 things you can touch or that is touching you. So maybe that means like your butt in the seat. If you have glasses on, maybe it's the glasses touching your nose. So 4 things that you can touch or that are touching you. And then 3 things that you can hear. So 1 might be my voice. You might have an animal meowing or barking in the background. 3 things you can hear. Two things that you can smell. And then 1 thing that you can taste. And if you want, you can mix up those numbers. Like for example, my hearing is probably my most accurate sense. I can hear like miles away. I can hear the strangest things. So when I do this, The one I use for 5 is I use my hearing for 5 instead of my sight for 5. So you can play around with this. And I'm going to actually post this in the chat. So 5 sight, 4 touch, 3 hear, 2 smell, 1 taste. Oops, I'm sorry, I just sent that to one particular person. I meant to send that to everybody. So I'm going to, it's weird that Zoom still does that. 2 smell, 1 taste. Okay. All right, so since we have to finish in a minute, I just want to ask if anyone has any questions, any feedback, anything they'd like to share. If not, we can do one more quick thing. Okay, so I'm going to go on. One more quick tool you can use. So we have basic belly breathing technique, the inhale and exhale. We have 4-7-8 breathing, which is inhaling for 4, pausing for 7, exhaling for 8. We're changing those numbers depending on your need. Just remember the exhale is always going to be the longest one, and you're going to use your belly when you inhale and exhale. We have grounding techniques, which you can use 5-4-3-2-1. And then the last one is something called the body scan. Now, the body scan can be something you do quickly within like a minute, or it could be something you could do for 20 minutes. And you can go on YouTube or really anywhere that you might, like the Calm app, right? Wherever you might access something that's going to teach you this or listen to this. It's called a body scan. And essentially what it does is it allows you to get really present and feel what's going on for your body. So instead of thinking about what is going to be happening in the future, this technique allows you to get present and feel what's currently going on. That doesn't always mean that it's pleasant. Sometimes people do a body scan and they feel pain, they feel fear, they feel tightness. Some people find that they feel relaxation, they feel ease, they feel soothing, right? So everyone's a little bit different, but you can use your breathing techniques along with the body scan in order to calm down the parts of the body that might feel a little uncomfortable. So essentially what it looks like is you scan parts of your body. So what I typically do is I say, start at your head and you name things. You say, okay, I'm going to feel my eyes and my nose, my mouth, my ears, my jaw, my teeth. I'm going to move my eyebrows up and down. I'm going to wiggle my ears. I'm going to maybe touch my face if I would like to, right? I'm going to feel the earrings in my ears if you have earrings. And you move to your neck and your shoulders. Okay, can I move my shoulders up and down? Can I roll my head so that my neck moves? Can I look up and down and side to side? And then you would do your arms, your chest, your back, your abdomen, your legs, and you just get really, really specific, depending on the amount of time you have, to feel that part of the body. So if I only have 2 minutes, I can't get really hung up on feeling every single part of my body. So maybe I just feel my arms and my legs, or maybe I just wiggle my toes for a few minutes and feel my feet. So you can focus on the parts of the body that you have time for, but a full body scan would be from head to toe of you feeling your body. And anytime you feel a part of your body that feels stuck, that feels tight, that feels scared, that feels overwhelmed, take some deep breaths and imagine sending the breath to that part of the body. And that will often send a sense of calming. And again, remember, when you do those deep belly breaths, you're activating a part of the nervous system that tells your body to calm down. So if you do the breathing and you forget to focus on parts of your body, that's fine. You're still getting the benefit because you're doing the deep belly breathing technique. All right, so thank you, Ange, for posting all of that for people to have. Anyone have any questions, concerns, feedback? If you'd like to add something for other people to have tools, please throw it in the chat right now before we finish.
Thank you so much, Christy. I don't see any questions in the Q&A function of Zoom, but did want to remind everyone that this recording will be available after today's summit. So make sure that you are registered in case you want a copy of it. We'll also be sharing recordings from the other sessions if there was something that you wanted to attend during this time slot.
Thank you everyone for being here. Hopefully something was helpful, and I hope you have a great rest of your virtual summit.